In a courtroom where justice should always be served, one judge's shocking behavior leaves everyone speechless. An elderly woman, appearing before the court, is about to face a legal battle she never imagined. But what happens next takes an unexpected turn. The judge, known for his stern demeanor, suddenly mocks her in front of everyone, an act that sends ripples of disbelief through the room. What could drive a judge, sworn to uphold the law, to treat a vulnerable woman with such disdain? As tension rises, the courtroom holds its breath. But just when you think it can't get any worse, the unexpected happens. The elderly woman, showing a resilience no one saw coming, does something that completely changes the course of the trial. What she does next will leave you in shock. Stay tuned to find out how this jaw-dropping story unfolds. The elderly woman, named Margaret, had come to court that day to fight a case. The words hung in the air. Margaret's heart raced. What was he about to reveal? Was there some hidden document, some twist she hadn't anticipated? Her mind spun as she tried to process the possibility that this entire battle, her last hope, might be slipping through her fingers. The courtroom fell silent, all eyes now on Margaret. The walls seemed to close in around her. Was this the end? Would she walk out of here defeated, or was there still a chance for justice to prevail? As the attorney handed the paper to the judge, the tension was unbearable. Margaret had no choice but to face whatever came next. Her entire future was on the line. Would she find a way to turn the tables, or was this the final blow? As the corporate attorney handed the document to Judge Thompson, Margaret felt her stomach drop. The judge paused, scanning the paper with a grim expression. The tension in the room reached its peak as the whispers of the courtroom audience grew louder, their eyes shifting from Margaret to the judge and back again. This wasn't just a legal setback, it was something far worse. Margaret's mind raced. What was in that document? What had they uncovered that could end everything she'd worked so hard for? Judge Thompson's eyes narrowed as he looked up from the paper. For a moment, it seemed like the world had stopped. "It appears," he said, his voice cold and deliberate, "that Miss Thompson has been misrepresented in her case. According to these records, there is an alleged financial discrepancy involving her property, one that could completely invalidate her claim." Margaret's heart skipped a beat. How could this be? She had checked everything. She knew her facts. Had someone sabotaged her case? She looked around the room, searching for answers, but the faces around her were either confused or indifferent. The corporate attorney's smirk deepened. He was watching Margaret closely, as if savoring the moment. But just as the words settled in, something even more unexpected happened. A voice from the back of the room interrupted the silence. It was soft at first, barely audible. "That's a lie," the voice said, shaky but firm. Everyone turned toward the source of the interruption. To everyone's shock, it was Margaret's son, James, who had been sitting quietly in the audience, watching in disbelief. He stood up, his face pale, but his eyes burning with anger. "My mother has been telling the truth. I've seen the records. This document," he pointed to the paper in the judge's hand, "was forged." The room erupted into a buzz of disbelief. How could James know such a thing? Was this some last-minute desperation, or had he uncovered something the corporate giants were trying to hide? The stakes had just been raised to a whole new level. Margaret had no idea what was happening, but she knew one thing for sure. It was no longer just about her savings. The battle had turned into something much bigger. Now the truth was at risk, and she needed to act quick. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The mystery woman walked up to the judge, handed him a thick file, and smiled at Margaret. "We've been investigating the corporate group behind this case. Their fraud goes much deeper than anyone realized. The evidence they've been using, it's all part of a much larger pattern of illegal activity." The corporate attorney's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The tide had shifted in an instant. Margaret, James, and the mystery woman stood united, their combined effort dismantling the lies and exposing the corruption at the heart of the case. Judge Thompson read through the new evidence, his stern expression faltering as the weight of the truth settled in. He slammed his gavel down hard. "This case is dismissed," he declared, his voice booming through the room. "And I'm referring this entire matter to the authorities for further investigation." For a moment, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Margaret stood frozen, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or simply breathe. She had won. Her determination, her son's unexpected bravery, and the mystery woman's timely intervention had unraveled everything. But just as Margaret thought she could finally relax, the mystery woman leaned toward her and whispered, "This isn't over. They'll try again. Stay alert." Margaret nodded, her heart pounding once more. The fight wasn't truly over, but for the first time in months, she felt like she might have a chance. And with her son by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. As Margaret walked out of the courtroom, her heart still racing, she glanced at James, who was smiling, a mixture of relief and pride in his eyes. The mystery woman from the Attorney General's office had promised to continue the investigation into the corporate group's illegal activities, ensuring they wouldn't just disappear into the shadows again. Margaret wasn't sure where the road ahead would take her, but for the first time, she felt like she had some control over her future. The days that followed were filled with news of the corporate group's downfall. Their fraudulent practices were exposed, and their leaders were held accountable. Margaret's case had sparked a wave of investigations, leading to justice not just for her, but for countless others they had wronged. She learned that standing up for yourself, even when the odds seem impossible, could spark change. As for Margaret, she'd never feel quite the same. She had faced the system, and with the support of her son and unexpected allies, had come out victorious. The battle for justice was never easy, but it was always worth fighting.